Brian Keefe, and I'm the chair of this process, and it's been a great learning experience for me, and I'm really pleased with the turnout we've had and the excitement and enthusiasm and the response that this whole project is getting. I want to just turn to Ivan Beatty, the chair of the select board, for a couple minutes, because this whole project is sponsored by the town of Manchester. The select board is the select board that invited the Council of Rural Development, and Ivan's just going to say a couple of quick words of introduction and context.
Thank you, Brian. Just a couple of real quick words. I'd like to thank you all for coming. It's great to get everybody to show up for these things on such a beautiful day. I know because I got from my barn to here in about 4 minutes, so I know everybody else is as busy as I am. First of all, I'd certainly like to thank Paul Costello and the VCRD for all that they've done to help coordinate this effort, and certainly would like to thank Brian Keefe for everything that he's done to chair it on a local level. But most importantly, I'd like to thank all of you for the input that you've given us in this process. And it was a learning experience for me, and I think no matter what comes out of this, and I haven't seen the final documents or product, but so it'll be interesting for me to see it at this point. But there were two things that came out of this that I thought were really important. First of all, there's so many members of the community from so many diverse backgrounds and groups came to participate and speak up and be a part of the process. To me, that was the most important part. But almost equally as important was that we had a group of very high-powered officials from the public sector, the private sector, the education sector that came in here to help shepherd us through this process. And I think they came away with a much different perspective of what Manchester is and who we are. And I'm sure that we've formed some bridges and some bonds to each of the organizations that they represent that will serve us well in the future. So I think it was a win all the way around already. And I anxiously await to see what Paul's going to do for us here this evening. So once again, thank you all for coming, and I'll turn it back over to Brian.
I want to introduce the 3 of the 4 people who have volunteered to be chairs of the committees, and I'm really excited that these people have taken on this task and this leadership opportunity. So on the business incubator side, John Conte is here somewhere. There he is. John. John is an advertising and marketing branding guy. He has an office down on Main Street, and he's been involved in the incubator discussion for quite some time, so we've got somebody who has a personal passion and some experience and some energy for this. And so I look forward to working with John, and I know many other people here are looking forward to that committee as well. Ellen Ogden is here somewhere. Ellen is a food Ellen will be leading the biking discussion. She's a food and garden writer, has a book on her website, and does presentations around it. We did a thing at J.D. Adams last week. So Ellen has stepped up, and I'm sure that there's a lot of interest in this topic, a lot of diverse interest in this topic, and so we're looking forward to seeing where that one goes. The Riverside and Riverwalk, Bill LeBaron is the chair of that. He's right here. High-quality furniture maker from Dorset, and also very active on the Transition Town Manchester team that's already, in this sense, no pun intended, hit the ground hard on this topic already. And I know he's looking forward to continuing with his energy and getting more energy as well from the many people who signed up for that. I think that's our most popular committee. And then the higher education one, Jen Hyatt is the chair of that committee. She's not here tonight because she's down in New York City receiving her master's degree from Columbia University. So I excuse her. I promised all of these chairs that they would get a lot of support from people, and that their job is not to do all the work, their job is not to do all the thinking, that they are to delegate and lead the teams. And I've assured them that we have a lot of very quality people in this room, and with their leadership and your support, we're going to have a lot of success. So with that, Paul Costello.
I was at a national meeting of colleagues in Indianapolis last week, and I was pushing this big agenda, and a number of them wanted to know who I was, so they went to our website and they looked at the Manchester Community Visit video and photos and ideas, and they said, geez, we don't have any towns like this in our states. How do you find a town that's that ready, that has such capacity, that has the resources that these folks have? And it was startling to me because we come to take it for granted, that we're there for each other, that we are able to add things up, that we work effectively as communities still, that we're real towns, and that it works here in Vermont where it doesn't work everywhere else. So it was really cool to be in a setting with these national folks who so admire what you all stand for and accomplish. So where are we in the process? It's my job to review the agenda. 4 months ago, steering committee representing all the demographics, business, minister, youth, downtown, teachers, sort of across the board group, looks at all the directions and challenges and big picture for Manchester in the future, comes up with 9 focus areas. We build focus forums for an hour and a half a month later at the community visit day. I go out and I say, who's the top person in Vermont who knows something about that or can facilitate a conversation about that area? We have 13 and a half hours of testimony on these 9 core areas of development for the future, get people's ideas, get their sense of challenges, and we build a stack of ideas like this. VCRD takes those ideas back, we look at them and we say, same idea here, 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 let's tie them together, we do a cluster analysis, we come back, and we present what we heard as the key ideas. A month ago, we all thought about those ideas together. We wrestled with them. It was challenging. There's so many good things. We recognize that we'd like to do all of them, but we can't do them all at once. As a community, folks here voted for 4 core priorities to take action on, to move forward this year, knowing that those other agendas are still with us, that any work and momentum that happens in one area, like in an incubator, could connect with another area, like food systems. And if we move the mark on these 4 areas that the community has identified as their common or their core priorities, it's going to move the ball in ways that will support the possibility of realizing success in other directions at the same time. So the community set these 4 core priority areas. They're on these blue sheets now with the people who signed up as chairs. And I want to introduce the team that we've brought back tonight. We go back and we say, who could help facilitate the conversation, lend their advice about what their community has done or what they know has been done in other areas in the state around this. So for the small business incubator discussion, I'd like to introduce Patricia Coates. Could you just stand up when you're called on, Patricia? From Congressman Welch's office. Lars Hasselbrook-Torres, who's the Creative Economy Director for the state of Vermont. Chuck Colvin, who has built his own incubator in the town of Poultney after conversations like this. And for the biking discussion, Greg Brown, who's a former Commissioner of Housing and Community Development, former planner for Chittenden County. Jim Sullivan is here. Jim's the Regional Planning Director for Bennington County. Paul Gallo, the chair of the Rutland Creative Economy Movement, where they've just been building a major bike trail in the community, and Paul's accomplished other great things, working with Susan Stragman, who's the Rutland Planning Commission leader on that project. And we have Jason Van Dreisch here from Local Motion in Chittenden County, which looks at the panoply of biking and pedestrian issues and has made great progress for Chittenden County in this area. On higher education, this one, issues around youth in this community have resonated throughout the whole process. This is a community dedicated to youth opportunities, dedicated to capturing a new generation of entrepreneurs. And in this process, leveraging higher education opportunities as a step towards that was seen as the key fulcrum. We've got with us tonight Ellen McCulloch-Lovell, the president of Marlborough College. Tim Donovan, the chancellor of Vermont State Colleges. And Joyce Judy, the president of Community College of Vermont, to share their thinking and think about possibilities with you, as well as what the community could do on your end to leverage these kinds of opportunities into the community for the long term. Redeveloping the riverside and opening a river walk. We have facilitator from USDA, a very experienced and bright guy, John Muse, who's done a lot of this kind of work. Peter Espenshade is here from the Vermont Community Foundation. They're one of our key partners and have been a major sponsor of this work as a whole. Thank you, Peter. And Richard Amore from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, who work and support downtown projects like this all around the state. Can we have a big hand for the visiting team? Okay, so the agenda for tonight. We're pretty much through one. We're going into this Manchester Points of Vision. Then we're going to get to serious work where we sit down and we look at these 4 priority areas. The chairs will be observing, supporting, and ultimately, if you're interested, you can report back at the end with the facilitators. But we're saying, what are the first steps you do to move this big agenda forward, the agendas that you established on these blue sheets? You can't do everything at once around biking. You can't do everything at once around the riverbed. What are the first steps you need to do? Sometimes towns will have an idea like beautification. And they say, well, we're going to do a full streetscape redesign and a feasibility analysis on that. Then let's put that in our plan. But let's also make sure we plant some flower boxes this year and paint 2 park benches this week. So think short, think real, and think big as well, so that you've got a continuum of activity, and knock it down as points. We know you're not going to come out with a full strategic plan tonight. What you're trying to do is say, what are some of the next things we ought to be doing as a committee and as a team to move this issue area forward, okay? And then we're going to spend, at 7:50, we're going to turn a corner in each group, and your facilitator will guide you to this to say, what other towns have done this? Where could we go for technical resources, technical assistance to move this forward? Where could we go for to hear the stories from other towns that have been successful? Where could we go for funding to make this happen? How do we organize to make sure that we're moving the ball? So that at the end of tonight, we've done a serious piece of work in lining up next steps for action in the 4 priority areas, and lists of resources that will help us get real, get connected, and learn more to get things done, okay? We'll come back here together at 8:30. Each task force will report where they're starting and what they've accomplished. Biking, everyone involved in that biking conversation is going to go upstairs, out here through the hall, and upstairs to room 220.
I sat down with each one individually and said, you be honest with us, and we'll be honest with you.
Because we could get into people
Lane. All roads in the state of, I used to be on the Vermont Schultz, who is now our executive director for Vermont Council.
So this is a good example of the kind of thing
Describe some of the steps that this committee could take.
I think the Northshire bookstore has a problem in literature that is unique. That might go forward and out.
So we talked to all the private landowners, they were more than delighted. Even Kimco Realty, the big corporation that owns the plaza.
It just kind of helps conceptualize, like they just have endless amounts of people.
Associations. These associations in town, Chamber of Commerce, which should have
that is under your partnerships to contact. 9 o'clock tonight when we leave, we want to have an idea of sort of.
So they really start with a broad needs analysis, that you need to consider potential spaces in the community. And there's places like Bromley School or the Berkshire Bank or Burton itself, the new library, others that can be considered as potential sites for coursework or for individual development activity over time. But it really starts with what do students want today? What are potential students looking for in the community? People who are out of school in their 20s and 30s who may be looking for trades. They may be local folks who are staying here. What do they need? What do seniors and people across the life spectrum want for educational opportunities here in town? So really doing that survey of the school and community to get a sense of what are key directions from them. And then looking at what are we going to focus on in town. The arts, technical, potentially med tech, trades, food systems education. What's the best return in job creation and in attracting young people and educating everyone through the community? So an evaluative process is going to be needed there. There's also a sense that you need to know where students are going to live, how they affect the downtown in the future of the development of the community. A sense that there's already all these different educational activities happening in town that should be cataloged, that should be inventoried. So inventorying what we already have. And then systematically approaching potential partner schools, interviewing key leaders from those schools. And we just touched on some of this in the group because we had leaders from CCV, from Marlborough, from Green Mountain College, and the Chancellor of Vermont's college system. Which were great resources for tonight. But what would they need to succeed? How do we evaluate pricing that will work for people in this community? And what do the business community need? So really doing an evaluation with the business community about the skills and educational needs that they see right now. And then think about what other towns have done. What are other models that this town could look at? So the committee sees itself as something of a coordinator between educators and institutions, including everyone in this room who has something to put on the table as a potential educator for the future. Surveying the talents of community members to build potentially a talent bank. Making Manchester a new model for education that is really breaking out of the boundaries of particular campuses in particular towns. Some of the resources that the town identified was that it's really going to be important to look at other towns that could be taken as models. What have other towns done? There's a Mount Auburn Associate study of Creative Berkshire and how Berkshire County, Massachusetts did some of this work. There's the resource of the Department of Labor, their apprenticeship program, which could talk about apprenticeship structures in Vermont. The higher education institutions in Vermont, each of them being interviewers and potential partners that could help lend advice on structure and what the committee needs to do, as well as Annie Noonan, the commissioner of the department, who could talk about all the job skills and statistics in terms of where the economy is going and where opportunities will be in the future. The Harold Grinspin Foundation has an interest and could be potentially a partial funder for some of this kind of work. The Chamber of Commerce here in town will be called upon to help deliver a survey. VCIC, the Regional Commission, can also be partners in really surveying local and regional business demand. The organization Made in America may be useful. The Career Development Center in Bennington, Stratford, the Creative Economy Director, Lars, is still here. He's going to be useful everywhere he goes. He's going to be a busy guy next few years. Department of Veterans Affairs, Johnson Studio School may be an interesting model, which kind of came together with this sort of philosophy. And then this institution here, the Chancellor of the State Colleges talked about blurring of the lines between higher education and high school, and how the governor's, the new law that was signed yesterday by the governor is really looking at helping kids take college-level courses, be stimulated, be part of the real world, be moving forward, and not be bound by the walls of an institution. Lots and lots of content here. that the group's going to need to be very focused to do step by step to get progress.
So as you can see, we came up with a number of actions, and we thought that the first thing we need to do is figure out our committee's governance. So what kind of structure are we going to have as far as subcommittees within that? But also then figure out what the organizational structure is going to be for the ownership and the maintenance of the property. The main thing as we go forward, what Peter pointed out, as we start to look for money is what's the ownership, what's the maintenance, and then we can figure out from there. So our first thing we're going to do is figure out how our committee is going to work, and then how the whole thing's going to work. Our second action is really defining our vision, and we kind of work in our design as well. Some people suggested maybe those are two separate things, but we're going to, for now, put them together, come up with a vision, which John was brilliantly displayed at. The vision is you kind of figure out that you want to just go somewhere hot and drink something cold, and then the design is you figure out which island you're going to go to, and what beach you're going to sit at, and what drink you're going to order. So that's kind of what that is. Then we need to figure out do an existing condition analysis, figure out who owns property, what legal issues are, a bunch of logistical things that we have to work out. So we'll start to do that, and sort of at the same time we're talking about involvement. So we're identifying partners and stakeholders. All those businesses along Main Street. They have a say and a stake in what happens. All the businesses down the plaza. Everybody in town has a stake in this. The planning commission. So we have to figure out who the stakeholders are and how we get them to also buy into this. And then we're going to figure out our communications. So communications among ourselves. Then we really want to be able to figure out the best communication method with the other groups that are here, especially the bike path committee, the bike center committee, because this Riverwalk could also be tied in with biking. So as we go forward, can we work together with that? And then also communicating out with the community. I mean, we need to let people know what activities we're doing so they can jump in, because when we have a work party, we usually get about 85 people to show up. So let's have a few of those. And then resource development, and that's going to be really important. And I've got a list somewhere of resources, and I mean, we're really lucky to have these guys come down from Montpelier because they give us a list of where are they? I mean, Vermont Land Trust, Nature Conservancy, these types of organizations that do these types of things. And then there's about the USDA Rural Development, Vermont Community Foundation, and then Richard was saying we should have downtown Manchester be a designated village center. Because once you get a designated village center, then you're going to get a lot more attention from the state and other. We can move forward in a number of ways. So will be a lot of our resources, and then working on it.
This was a wonderful conversation about creating an incubator in Manchester. And we began by talking about an assessment of local properties that might be appropriate for this kind of space. And then we also started talking about identifying a focus for the incubator. But soon they began to think broader and ask the question of how do you create a culture of entrepreneurship here in Manchester, which then broadened the thinking around whether a space was immediately relevant or not. So this notion of creating a culture of entrepreneurship then led to some thoughts about surveying the needs of entrepreneurs and of surveying the needs of existing businesses that may want to grow, connecting with the independent workforce, folks who may appreciate an opportunity to work together and to network. We also discussed a survey of existing business development resources, and from my observation, the room was full of almost every ingredient needed for business development in the town. Between experienced business people, the SCORE program, the chamber, there are plenty of resources here in Manchester. An action step, the community will need to decide then what it will do to incubate businesses here in Manchester. Will it require a space? For example, if the town decided to go the route of food venture, will it need a commercial kitchen? Art studios? What kind of space might businesses need? But again, how can that culture be created where we are connecting entrepreneurs, providing mentorships, perhaps connecting with students who might have business plan competitions, things like that. Now, in terms of resources, the committee would like to look at models from other communities, would explore grant opportunities once it had a plan forward, would hope to work with the town and the state on providing incentives for businesses to grow here. And again, these asset inventories are going to be very helpful.
Thank you to Greg and the team that helped us. I'll keep it really simple, which really the big question was, what does it take to become a biking center? You know, we really had to look at that. We were trying to think of short-term, medium-term, long-term goals. We came up with 14 hot topics and then tried to maybe consolidate those. So we grouped them into 4 essential groups. One is roads. We're going to be looking at paths, paving, striping, adding, bike paths to the paving that's going on, new paving coming up, cleaning and general maintenance. Number 2 is information. How do we get maps out? How do we develop more web presence? How do we get the word out to bike groups that want to come here and use our trails and really develop more signage and education? And number 3, we're going to be looking at bikes. Do we want to have town bikes? Do we want to have a fix-it center? Do we want to have a little kiosk down at the Chamber of Commerce that will be an information booth really for all kinds of resources and really build up the whole sort of bike thing going on here? And 4 is a rail to trail. We have some members of our community who have been advocating for rail to trail and have taken some steps, and that will be coming out more. And we kind of see that as a long-term strategy. Maybe it might take 5 years, hopefully it'll take closer to 2 or 3 years, but that's some of our planning. And essentially we have all the ingredients to be a vibrant biking center and all the resources, and we have a great team and a great community, and I think we're going to be really successful.